What's up, guys? Welcome back to Rusty Acres. Today we are going to be restoring this old wood stove. So what I'm going to do with this wood stove is I'm going to pressure wash off all the rust because it's kind of powdery. I'm going to pressure wash it, I'm going to paint it, see if there's any modifications I need to make to it, probably not. And I'm just going to get this wood stove back and running, maybe test fire it today, and after this wood stove is all nice and restored, it's going to replace the current wood stove in my fort. First, I'm going to show you it up close in its unrestored condition. Alright, so now I need to get the stove ready for pressure washing. So first I need to take off all the top pieces, so anything that could be pushed off by water pressure. Probably the doors and the grate. Now I need to, if I keep my glasses at a safe distance, I need to lay down the whole stove. And the reason why it has to be laid down is that the water pressure could push it over if it was standing. But now it's in the lowest position it can possibly be in, so now the stove is safe for washing. Right after pressure washing, this is what we have. I also cleaned up the accessories quickly. I didn't do a very good job. I'll have to come back and do this again. But the stove itself looks a little bit better. I got some of the powdery rust off it. So now this has to dry out here in the sunshine for a little while, and then it should be good for some paint. Everyone, coming back to day 2 of the stove project here. Today I'm going to paint the stove with some black high heat paint. I believe this is Rust-Oleum paint. It's all nice and dry after the pressure washing, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the paint in this thing, and it's gonna look a lot better when it's painted. Alright, so for painting the stove, it's actually pretty simple. High heat paint is very similar to normal paint. You just kind of put it on there, take your time. I'm gonna do one coat, let it tack up, do a second coat, and do a test fire. Which is just a small fire to set the paint, because this paint truly cures at a high temperature, so that's why I need to light a fire within the stove to truly set it. And sometimes when setting the paint, it makes nasty fumes that you don't want to breathe in, so that's why I'm going to do a test fire out here in the open where there's plenty of fresh air, so I don't risk suffocating on fumes, because that's not very fun. So I'm going to get this all painted up, and we'll see how she looks. With the first coat of paint, I am very happy with the results. You can still see on the top it's still trying to tack up. That's what it should look like, but it just looks so much better. Sadly, I don't have that nice angle considering how the sun is currently, but I think you still get the picture of how nice this thing is. I'm thinking about giving her a light second coat and then a test fire to set the paint, and this thing's gonna look fantastic. Alright, so now our stove's painted, the paint is nice and dry, so now we're gonna set the paint by lighting a fire in the stove. So I'm gonna set the stove up real quick. Put on the door. I'm also gonna take out the centerpiece so I can get the things that I'm gonna burn into the combustion chamber easier. I have these little wads of paper. I have some fine pieces of pine wood that are nice and dry. Gonna to stack up some nice thin stuff in here. Just want to let off the paper. The wood will catch on fire. I think we should be ready to light that. All right, so now I'm gonna actually get our fire lit. Down in there. Need another match. Actually, I think that's good. Let me put this together to the best of my abilities. Now the reason why I only have one of these little circles on is the other one is oversized, and we have to turn that down on a milling machine, and we can't do that right now. But right now it's important to just get the paint set, so that's what we're gonna do. Just give this a couple minutes to warm up. I have a little pile of firewood here. We're just gonna let this burn and see what happens. Good example of why we have to set the paint is on the top of the surface here. You can see smoke coming off. That's because the paint getting hot, and that has fumes in it, and you don't want to do that inside of a closed space. That's why we're doing this outside. I just want to show that little example of a good reason why you have to set paint outdoors. So after we have set our paint, you might have noticed during the time lapse that one of the top stove plates, which is this one specifically, it's too large for the top of the stove. So what we're going to do on our milling machine here is we're going to cut down this flange because it has a too tall of a flange and the diameter is too big. So we're going to shave down on this part, and the reason why we're going to cut down on this area is to preserve that space because it has this little dent here, and we don't want to change that shape. So I'm going to get this clamp down, take this off, and then hopefully it should fit in our stove. Alright, so to get our piece held to the turntable, first a block of wood, so if the drill bit goes too far down, it won't damage the clean machined surface of our turntable. Now the piece that we're going to work with, this can just get eyeballed because we're not doing super precise. We're just trying to make it work. That looks pretty well centered. I can even bring my bit down, just kind of eyeball a good center point. Now that I have my center point, slide in my pieces for clamps. Take our piece of, oh wait, I gotta rotate this. Actually, let's try it like this. That should hold. Nut in the washer on both sides. I think I need to rotate my piece here. Now 9/16 wrench, tighten it down good and tight. We don't want our piece of metal to move at all. Give the whole thing a little shake test, and it seems pretty well mounted, so I'm sure we can start cutting this. All right, so after doing a little bit of work to this exterior flange here, this side still has a little bit of flange, although on this side it is perfectly smooth. I'll zoom in for you guys. It is perfectly smooth. We still have to do it on this side. Actually, wait. It begins somewhere over here, but I'm gonna get to getting this flange finished up. Then we're gonna change our diameter. All right, so after finishing off our flange, this is what we're left with. Really nice, smooth. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to cut off this bit of material here to change the diameter to make it smaller. This is going to be a little sketchy. Our clamp's tight, got the piece of wood, so the wood might change by a tiny little bit. So let's just try any small errors we can take out with a belt sander. I guess it's just sander. Alright everyone, so after machining our stove tops down, we're now out here actually getting our stove duct put together to have the new wood stove put in with duct on it. So, we are going to put a screw into this, get this ready to be installed. We had to install most of the duct off camera because it was kind of complicated, two-person job. So we did that off camera, but this I'm going to show you how this is going to get put together and installed. So now let's get into that. Alright, so now we need to hold this elbow to the actual stovepipe. So I'm going to use these little screws. Line it up. And this metal is kind of flimsy, so you gotta hold it straight. And let's just send it. Ah, and stripped. Oh, the one ain't crooked. I don't think that's stripped at all. We still have hope. I'm gonna take that out completely and try a different spot because this joint wasn't set up correctly. That's a bit better. Now to go to a different spot because that metal is kind of fatigued and misshapen. Hope I'll go the right way. Now that's held together. Turn it around. Put one on this side. The metal's not quite lined up. That's just gonna have to do. Now it's all stored and put together. Ready for installation. Alright, so now on the top of our roof, this piece is gonna get attached here. Now this crinkly bit goes inside the pipe. Sometimes they're a bit misshapen, so sometimes you have to kind of squeeze the larger pipe into the position that you need. And I got lucky, this one went right in for me. Now we still have to figure out this mounting position, but we'll get to that. So right now, I'm gonna put a screw right here. Drop that screw. I'll stay on zone for a second. Almost lost another one. These small screws and the really small heads are kind of a pain in the butt to deal with. Now we're put in good and tight. Now if I get my other screw, I might want to take a step down and then put it in from the bottom. And I might, oh, now we're heavy. Now this just needs to get mounted and we'll figure that out. Now we're all installed. I'll show you what it looks like. For that, we just kind of used some brute force and got it in. Our joint, it's not perfect, but over time, it'll kind of settle into a position that it wants to be. Last time wasn't perfect, but this time I'm sure it's better than the last. Okay, so now we are going to do a test fit of our machined down piece. And I just have a candle going to add a little bit of extra light. You can see the reflection. This has been trimmed, so we're gonna put it in and see how it fits. Like a glove. The centerpiece goes in first. That fits nicely. Oh, look at that. Does this thing work? Oh, look at that. I can use the proper tool for the job here. Oh, like a dream. Perfectly flat. Oh, this is the Cadillac stove. So here's our new stove, and here's our old stove. As you can tell, just the size of it, this one is so much bigger. It's gonna burn more wood. It's gonna put out a lot more heat. This is a really nice stove, and we can cook two things at once on it. Now, for anyone curious as to why we replaced the original wood stove, I'll show you. For one, it is a single burner stove, which means that it has one spot for one pan. And we like to cook breakfast up here, so we need a lot of cooking space. And cooking on just one little burner kind of got to be a little bit of a hassle, and we just wanted an upgrade. Second reason, this stove is really small. This thing's really small, doesn't put out a lot of heat. It's a great little stove, but we just needed an upgrade, so that's why we got this one. Now, for someone says, well, this one isn't broken, why fix it? Well, actually, it is broken. That whole seam is burst open. That should be solid. So we cooked this little thing into oblivion. So it broke, so we had to fix it. It might as well upgrade while fixing. Now to remove the old wood stove. Now let's see, can I pick her up from the top? Oh, this thing's heavy. Now I'm gonna get around it. Carefully pick it up out of here. Oh. And try not to fall downstairs. Old stove out. Okay, so now our stove is fully installed, all the pipes in place, stove's in place. Now it is time to light it. So I'm gonna take off this little door. I haven't done anything with the stove in terms of using it. I've done that test fire, but first time actually using the fort. So what I did, I just put in some charcoal. That helps us get a nice base going in our fire. I'm gonna toss in some thin oak. This stuff burns hot and quick, which is what you want for getting a fire going. I'm gonna take off a stove plate here so I can get my hand a little bit easier. Oh, and that's one that we machined down. Put in our other piece of oak. Get some larger pieces in. So when the small stuff catches and starts to burn, these larger pieces will burn up. And then we put in full-size pieces and then our stove's going. All right, let's get to it. All right, let's get it lit. I'm gonna have to kind of like drop it in there. All right, looks like we have combustion. Put my middle piece back on. Put my other top piece on. Ooh, it's already warm. And put our door in place. This door's weird, it just kind of sits there. Now that's in place. Close her up. have our damper in the open position to let more air flow through the whole thing. Get our ash pan grate air thingamabob open. Now we just gotta wait for it to warm up. All right, so our stove is doing great. Still hasn't gotten hot enough to burn that shininess off, but sounds great. Let's open her up and see what's going on in there. She's burning pretty good. You can just start to hear a faint roar of it. Got some water warming up here. This is a nice little stove. So on the outside here, if my light will shine back up there, there we go. Gotta get out of the way. There we go. Our pipe looks pretty good. The sticker's starting to brown and smoke a little bit, so the galvanization is starting to get burnt off, which is exactly what we want to happen. So our new pipe's setting up well. Everything's looking good so far. All right, everybody, it is now tomorrow, and it's time for breakfast on the new wood stove. There it is. It actually looks quite nice there. It fills up the space really nicely. The ash from last night's fire, and then if you shake the grate and dump it, this one doesn't dump. That's weird. You just gotta shake it real good. Now our grate's shaken and pretty clean. Now we can get a new fire. Today's breakfast, we have a new cast iron skillet. And check this out. One side we have our skillet, one side we have our coffee pot. This is awesome. Every day we come up here for breakfast. This is the nice view we have. Today it's not all that interesting because the sky is pretty boring and plain, but we have some trees and stuff in front of us, and we have the sky. We like to come up here like during rain or snow because that looks really cool. And so for breakfast today we're having corned beef hash. This stuff is awesome. We're pairing that with some eggs, some hot chocolate mixed in with some instant coffee. That's a really good combination. And it just pops out of the can just like that. That looks so appetizing. I know it looks gross right now, but give it about 5 minutes to cook. It'll look great. It's starting to cook. Sounds good. On a hotter section of the stove and listen to it steam. That's gonna be so delicious. Finished corned beef hash. This stuff is gonna be so good. Paired with some ketchup and eggs, it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be so good. We got some nice eggs, hash, and some ketchup to top it off. This is gonna be delicious.